When the coffee machine comes out, even hotter.
Oh, wow. Jonathan, you doing okay?
Baruch Hashem, yeah, I'm at my parents'.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay, very nice. Okay. Today we're going to start on the bottom of Nun Vav Amud Aleph. I'm a rabba. Not nifritza balayla shabbatzua listim. Okay. Thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. In this list of learning, we should have the Beis Hamikdash. Okay, so the Mishnah said that if a person protects his animals properly, so then it's going to be exempt if they cause damage. The Mishnah said that if it breaks down, if the wall breaks down, or if the door gets broken by night, or robbers break through it, and then the animal goes out and causes damage, so he is going to be exempt from payment. The owner is going to be exempt from payment from that damage because he did everything that he was supposed to. So now the Gemara says, "Amar Rabba v'hu shechatra." How did the wall fall down? How did the wall collapse? So the reason why the wall collapsed was because the animal dug under the wall, weakened the foundation of the wall, and the wall collapsed. Avalai chatra mai. Okay, so Rabba's statement on the Mishnah, why he's going to be pater, is because this was the crazy story where the animal weakened the foundation of the wall. What would happen if like chatra? If this crazy story didn't happen, the animal didn't dig under the wall, what would be the din? Chayiv. Sounds like it would be responsible. Heichidami, what's the case? Are we talking about that it's a strong wall? Bari means healthy. It's a strong wall. So 1 second. Why is he chayiv? If the animal doesn't dig under the wall, why is he chayiv? He did everything he was supposed to. He put up a good wall. He should be exempt. That was the logic of the Mishnah. Why does it need to be that crazy case how the wall falls down for him to be chayiv? I don't know how it got out, but whatever the case is, he did what he was supposed to. What do you want him to do? Should be pater. Ella b'kaisel ruah must be that it's a weak wall. That's why he's going to be chayiv. And then the reason why he's going to be exempt is because the animal did something crazy. It dug under the weak wall. That's why he's going to be pater. But ki chatra my pater. Why is he going to be exempt just because the animal dug under a weak wall? He didn't cover his responsibility by putting up a strong wall. It's tchilasi b'pshia v'seifa b'inasu. I know that what actually happened in the end was unpreventable circumstances. How the animal got out was because it dug under the wall. But the wall that he put up was negligent on his part. Now we have a question. What happens if someone is negligent? But what actually happens in practicality was unpreventable circumstances. So is he chayav or pater? That's a major machlaikas. And the Gemara says like this: if we say that starts off with his own negligence, he put up a weak wall, and in the end, the animal digs under the wall, which is an unpreventable circumstance. That's a ninus. Pater, then we understand.
A little bit like a pshia. Then what's an actual inus?
Oh, inus and pshia are opposites.
Can't be, because so many times we see you mention something for inus, so always a pshia.
No, sometimes it starts off with a pshia. Here, it started off with a pshia. He had a weak wall. And then what actually happened was not that the weak wall collapsed, but that the animal dug under the wall and got out.
I hear, Uncle, guys.
Yeah.
If, I don't know, a mom is watching a cow that's in the field, sees a storm, doesn't mind the storm, and a lightning hits it, it dies. It's inus. He still should have been ready for it if he saw a storm.
Okay. Right. All right. So that would be that then you would have to decide, is it a Einus or a Pshia? But it can't be both. You could have Tchilasi b'Pshia, you started with a Pshia and then ended with an Einus. But the Pshia and Einus are opposite.
Would it make a difference if this animal has dug its way out before?
That we're going to see on the next page. We'll see. But if you say that Tchilasi b'Pshia v'Seif V'Einus is Chayev, so then what's the reason over here why he's Pater? He was negligent and the animal dug out. So what's Rabbah talking about? That you're going to be Pater when it digs out. It digs out under the wall collapsed or it digs its way out. Probably it digs and the wall collapses. That's what it's talking about. Nifritza, the wall collapsed, the wall broke down. Ella Masnisan Bekaisel Bari. We have to change the pshat. To change the whole story. What we thought Rabbah was talking about is not exactly what we had here. We're really talking about that it's a strong wall. And that's why he's going to be pater. And forget about what Rabbah said. Rabbah said that it's only if it was chatra, if it dug under the wall. The truth is that he's going to be exempt even if it doesn't dig under the wall. He's always going to be exempt if there was a strong wall. Back to the way we understood it at the beginning. And what is that statement of Rabbah that was confusing us? That was a seifet. That was on a different case. We put the comment, the footnote of Rabbah on the wrong part of the Mishnah. So now let's take a look. Mishnah says, if he left it in the sun, he's going to be chayiv. Or if he gives it over to a deaf, mute, imbecile, or child to guard it, he's going to be chayiv because that was not covering his responsibility. And on this, Amar Rabba v'afilu chatra. Even if what happens is that, even though he was irresponsible because he left it in the sun, or he gave it over to someone that wasn't competent to watch it, so he's going to be chayiv, even if what happens is something that's unpreventable. It digs out. 1 second. This looks like Tchilasi b'Pshia v'Seifai B'Einus, and that was a machlekes. It says like this: not only if it doesn't dig out.
It's la.
What do you have?
La, not light.
Are you serious? You have a la, lamed hay? Yeah. Is it lamed aleph or lamed hay?
Lamed aleph.
Oh, lamed aleph. Okay. La. Oh, so it has a kamat. A
Yeah.
kamat. Okay. Okay, that's fine.
I've seen them. I've seen you do that before.
In the Quran, instead of laimi bai, it says lami bai, but it doesn't mean it's not with a hey, it's with an aleph. It's just they put the kamat. They spell an Aramaic la with the kamat. Okay. Means not only. Laimi bai heichad lechacha the kul b'pshiahi, that if the wall collapses, it's for not the wall collapses. We're on a new case now. Not only if it breaks its way through because it was left in the sun, that we consider that entirely negligent because he left it in the sun. But even if it gets out in such an abnormal way that it digs a hole under the wall, it tunnels its way out. I could have thought that maybe this is a tchilasi b'pshia. You left it in the sun, and the way it got out was unpreventable circumstances, and that was a machlekes. Kamash Malan, it comes to tell us the kula pshihi. When you leave it in the sun and it got out, that's not considered. If it gets out in an unpreventable circumstance in this wild way that it digs a hole under the wall, that's not considered that it's a einus. Why? My timer, the amalei, because we tell the owner, we tell the owner, made the yadit. You surely should know the keeping the shavkisa b'chama, that when you leave an animal in the sun, kol tatska dis lemeva avda benafka, any trick that it's going to come up with to be able to get out of the heat, it's going to do. So that's not considered that it was unpreventable circumstance. That's considered that it's negligent on your part. Yeah. Yeah, we tell the owner, like, well, what were you expecting? What do you want it to do? To die in the heat? It was going to do every crazy thing that's possible. Okay. Now, It's you listim chayav. Next case of the Mishnah is if the robbers actually steal the animal, they take the animal out, then the robbers become responsible for all the damages that the animal causes. If the robbers break the wall down, then they were exempt because they didn't steal the animal just escaped. But if the robbers actually take the animal, so then the robbers are going to be chayav. Gemara says pshita, of course they're chayav. Even dafkua kam lebishusayil chalmili. If they stole it, then they made a mashicha and pulled it towards them. That's a type of kinyan acquisition. If they acquire it, then they're the owners.
It makes no sense if it's a jailbreaking, at least one prisoner instead of another one you don't have to care for.
You mean the one that you released or the one that you didn't release?
When you didn't release, if anything happened from it, you don't have to. It's nothing to your fault. Only from one you released.
Oh, so
break one.
Yeah,
for both.
Yeah. But what we're saying here is that all the damages that happen when the robbers break the wall, all those damages are indirect damages. They didn't actually do those damages.
Neither when you broke the jail.
So they're chayav b'din shemayim.
I don't know, catch outside.
Yeah, but they're chayav b'din shemayim. They're responsible because of heaven, but they're not responsible for in the actual court. Because in court you would only be chayav for what you actually do. Since the robbers didn't actually do the damage, or they didn't actually own the animal that did the damage, so then they would be exempt, at least in our courts.
In the case of the robber takes the animal, does he become like a borrower? Take the responsibility.
He has the responsibility of an owner. It looks like. Wait 2 minutes, and we'll get a better point on this. The Gemara says we're looking for a chiddush here because if the robber actually owns it, so then why is he? What does the Mishnah have to tell me? It's a regular owner, right? So the Gemara says like tzricha the kamma daf. We're talking about where he didn't actually do a mashiach on it. He didn't actually pull it. He just stood right in front of it. Like Rabba says in the name of Rav Masna, who says in the name of Rav, that if someone stands an animal right next to the stalks of the grain of his friend, and the animal eats it, so then he has to pay for it. He has to pay for shein v'regel, even though it wasn't his animal. But he's the one that moved it over there. He has to pay for the damage. So we're talking about, and now the Gemara elaborates on this. It says, "Ma'imid pshita." Of course, if you brought the animal over to it, that it was going to eat it, and then you'd have to pay for it. Like tzricha the kamma daf. We're talking about where you didn't actually move it over by hand. We're talking about that you just stood in front of it, and because you stood in front of it, you didn't give it any place to go, but you didn't pull it. That's considered that you actually did it. So the chiddush over here is that you're standing in front of it, and that's considered like you moved it. Amalei Abaye or Rabbi Yosef Ikisha Amritla. Abaye says to Rabbi Yosef that you told us that he was hitting it with a stick. Listimnami de kishua. And if that's the case, that even though we didn't pull it, but because he caused it to go by hitting it with the sticks, that's considered a mashicha. And what we're learning now is that in order to acquire an animal, you have to pull it. You can also hit it with the stick, and that would be considered like pulling it. Taisvis over here discusses gives two answers. He says, if you see Reb Naftali in this big Taisvis Pshita, says V'yesh Leimar, the Svarahu the Gazla Nichnas Tachas Abaylim, Kivin Shahitzi Mirshas Baylim, Shahayu Chayavim B'Shmirasa, Ve'in Abaylim Michelim L'Shamra, Lefi Shenigzla Mihem, Yesh Ala Gazlan L'Shleimra. Because the owner was the one that was responsible to guard it. And now the thief went in and took it out of the owner's domain. And the owner can't guard it. So the only one left to guard it would be the thief. So the obligation of guarding went on him.
Yeah, it seems like it's a special kind of kinyan.
Yeah.
It doesn't require the agreement of the seller.
Yeah, well, usually usually there's a problem because usually when someone steals something, he has an obligation to return it. So he doesn't actually acquire it unless he makes a change in the item. So here we're saying that there's Mashicha and Shini Rishus, he's pulling it out, but so what? Whenever someone steals something, he pulls it out, but he still has to give the item back.
Right.
He doesn't really own it. So the first answer of Taisvus is that this has to do with that Chakira that we said before. Do we say that the responsibility for payment for damages is because you were supposed to guard it? It's negligence on the guarding. So that's what Taisvus is answering over here, that the responsibility to pay is because the obligation to guard it, which was under the owner, now the owner can't guard it because you've just removed it from the owner. So now the obligation to guard it goes on the thief, and now the thief is responsible. Taisvus' second answer is void. Taisvus says on the first wide line. He says since he's going to be responsible for Einstein, so for if anything bad happens to this animal, the thief is going to have to pay no matter what. He becomes like a borrower, to a very high level of obligation, of responsibility for the animal itself. So we actually consider him like an owner. So now what Taisvus is saying is that the other side of that chakira, the way we have two sides of, is that the reason why a person has to pay for damages is because it's an extension. His property is an extension of himself. So over here, the animal is now an extension of the thief. And the thief, Taisvus gives us both sides, basically. In the two answers, he's playing with this chakira of what's the responsibility of a person.
If that's true, it's like considered himself. When they break down a wall, you should have to pay for more than just the damage of the wall. You should also pay for embarrassment and all the other or stuff because if it's him and it hurt him, then.
He's saying, I hear Shalom's asking a question that if you say that property is an extension of the person, then if someone damages the property, then he should have to pay for the other 5 things. For embarrassment, well, there's no doctor bills, but he should have to pay for embarrassment because it's an extension of the person, and maybe the person's embarrassed by a broken wall. So you're stretching it. Yeah. We're saying that the responsibility of the item is on you. If whenever you get something new, like for Hanukkah or something, you get something new, you think like it's just a gift. I have something new. Now it's just a bliss. It turns out that it's a responsibility. Now you have to watch it to make sure that it doesn't damage anyone. You can't leave it on the floor, and so everything that you acquire becomes a responsibility. So yeah.
That's the problem with possessions.
I hear a minimalist talking.
Just saying that's the problem. Now you have something you're responsible for.
Yeah.
If we go by the idea that the animal is removed from the owner's domain, wouldn't that apply also? Like if somebody comes and opens the gate and then lets the animal loose, because in that instance it is also removed from the owner's.
Right. The only thing is, but that's totally indirect. Because it's indirect, so you can't make him responsible for that. Here, he directly took it. So now that obligation that the owner has is now put onto him. Yeah, you have a good point though. Because why should it matter?
There are different phrases, both in Hebrew and in English, to describe what Shalom's mentioning. In halakha, the answer is ein lo ela trumos. He has a grudge. Doesn't mean he can do anything about it in law. He has a legitimate grudge.
Right.
But he was wronged, but all he has is a grudge. And in English, you say, for every wrong, there's not a right.
It's not trumas, it's taromas.
Tarumas.
Say again?
Tarumas with an ayin.
Tarumas. Okay.
Tarumas.
Thank you, Moshe. I missed that.
That's going to be in Bab Metzia. We'll have that. Okay. The next Gemara goes, Masjal araya nichnas araya tachtov. It says, if you give something over to a shepherd, then to watch. You give the animal to the shepherd, then the shepherd becomes responsible. Now, that's what it says in the Mishnah. Our Gemara is not satisfied with that case because our Gemara thinks that that's so obvious.
If your cow is you're making for carbon, and then it escapes, you don't have to release it. Why should you have to release it when the robber strikes the wall down?
You have to catch it and bring it to
Who would
the
have to catch it?
owner.
Well, it's not his fault that they were there.
No, but what's the difference if it's a carbon or not? If he has to bring it to the base of Mikdash, right?
Yeah, but he has to redeem it if he can't bring it.
Oh, it needs to get a mum first. It's that's more complicated.
Also, kind of, it was breaking through its own wall under it, or when they broke that part of the wall. Then he went to go there and he fell.
Yeah, I don't know. Masr l'raya. So if he gives it to a shepherd, I don't know. So then the our Gemara is not satisfied with just simply giving it to a shepherd, because we think that that's so obvious that it's a regular shaymer, it becomes responsible. Amri tacht of the man, who are you talking about? That the shepherd goes in the place of the other person. Ilay tacht of the balabim. If you say it's talking about that there was owner of an animal that gave his animal over to a shepherd, like a daycare center, right? You give it over to a shepherd to watch. So then, Tanina Chadazimna, that we have another Mishnah. It says, if you give an animal to a watchman, then the animal becomes responsible, just like the watchman becomes responsible for the animal, just like the owner. The Gemara comes up with a more complicated case to make the Mishnah into a Chiddush. Elatacht of the Shaymer. What we're talking about is that the owner had already given it to a Shaymer, to a watchman. Now this Shaymer is giving it to another Shaymer, to a shepherd. Gemara says, Shaymer Kamma Iftar lei legamri. You want to say that the first watchman is now exempt? This is going to be a question on Rava. If someone gives an object over to his friend to watch, and then the friend decides he doesn't want to watch it, so he gives it to someone else. He had no rights to do that. If even an accident happens, an unpreventable circumstance happens to the item under the second watchman, the first watchman is responsible for everything because he had no rights to give it over to him. The owner comes to the first watchman, says, "Where's my item?" The only thing he can say is that I gave it to someone else to watch. He says, "Well, you're responsible." Says even if an accident happens, because he had no rights to give it to him. He had no rights to give it. So why are we saying over here that now the third hand, the second, the shepherd is responsible for the damages? It should be the first shaymer is responsible. The first watchman is responsible because he had no rights to give it to the second one.
This is different and it's not supposed to line up with the Shia.
Yeah. Over there, shliach is allowed to make another shliach. Yeah, but this is the guy tells him, I don't trust that guy with my item. This is a different story. So Amalach Rava would respond, my masal araya, what does the Mishnah mean that he gives it to a shepherd? Le Barzilai. He gives it to the apprentice of the shepherd. So now what we're talking about now is the way Rava will explain it, that yes, there is a third party here. There was the owner that gave it to the shepherd, and the shepherd gave it to his apprentice. So that's why the apprentice is going to be chayav and the shepherd isn't, because that's a common thing. That when you give something over to the daycare center, that it's not just going to be the main shepherd that's going to be. There's going to be also the youngsters that are learning how to be shepherds, and that they're going to be taking charge as well. Ikad Amrit, those that say Midiktani Masr L'Raya of Lektani Masr L'Acher, Shmamina my Masr L'Raya, Masr L'Raya LeBarzilai. Since it doesn't say that he passed it on to someone else, it says we gave it to a shepherd. It must mean that we're talking about that the shepherd has given it to the apprentice. Because that's something that's common. Avalacher, but if he would give it to someone else, then we would say that the first shomer is going to be chayiv, that the first shepherd is going to be chayiv. He has no right to give it to someone else. This is a lema messiah leila Rava. This is a proof to Rava that you can never hand over something to someone else. This is very common. Someone borrows a pencil and he's using it, and someone else comes by and says, "Can I use the pencil just for 1 second?" And you have to sound like a real, mean guy. You say, "Sorry, it's not mine. Can't lend it to you." But unless the guy is obviously allowing, but otherwise, according to Rava, you're not allowed to lend it to someone else. You can lend your own thing to someone else whenever you want, but you can't lend someone else's thing to someone else. Thank you. Oh, wow. Yitzi's here. So we think that this is a support for Rava because it doesn't say that he was allowed to give it to someone else. He was only allowed to give it to apprentice. And this would be a proof to that. Gemara says Amri, they say, it's not a proof. Maybe this was a normal case, but the same law would apply if you would actually give it to someone else as well. Okay. All the fog. Okay, the next Gemara is going to take us through almost the whole page. And the Gemara doesn't really belong here. It belongs in Bava Metzia. It's about someone that finds a lost object. And for example, he's walking on the street and he finds, I don't know, a ring. Or he finds, it belongs in Elam Metzias. He finds something over there. And he wants to give it back to the owner. He picks it up to give it back. But he doesn't take perfect care of it. And let's say it gets lost or it gets stolen. What's the responsibility of the finder towards the original owner? What type of watchman is he? Knows he has a responsibility to give it back to the owner, but he wasn't so responsible. So the Gemara goes like this. Itmar, there was a statement, Shemer Aveda, the fellow that's watching the lost object.
Why does that belong here?
Yeah, that's a good question. Shalom's asking, why did it end up over here? And I'm not sure, and yet he's also asking. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how it ends up over here. Anyway, there's a machlekes. That's something the commentaries will discuss. Yeah, that's like the mafarshim. Rabba Amar Kishem Rechinam Dami.
You might have what the item is.
I don't think so.
It does. It's an item that you have to have guards for it. Then he's more or less considered Shemer Zachar because he would have the person have to give the item back, would have to pay him for the guards that he put on to watch his
That's
item.
not payment for him. That would just be a repayment of the guards.
Can I say goodbye to Shalom? I'm leaving now.
Okay. That's a lot.
Safe travels.
Safe travels. Okay. So, Rabbah says he's a shemechinam. Rabbah says that he's not a paid watchman, and if for example, if he's a shemechinam, he's a non-paid watchman. So then, if it gets stolen or lost, he's exempt. Only if he's negligent is he going to be chayav. Absolute negligence. He left it on the street. Negligence. Rabbi Yosef says no. He's like a paid watchman. A paid watchman is going to be responsible if it gets lost or stolen. Someone breaks into his house and steals it. He's still responsible.
The interesting thing about this case is that if someone finds a lost object, they're obligated to take possession of it.
Yeah.
I think it says it right, so you can't just walk past it.
Exactly. And now he ends up with this huge obligation that it's almost like something like, I hope I don't find anything, because he become responsible for for returning it. This goes back to that possession thing. That the more possessions I have, the more I don't want to find any treasures, especially ones that I can't keep. Okay, so I say Reb Chaim Soloveitchik, someone came to his house and he left his boots there. So they kept them, but they have to return them to the owner. And when the family moved to Israel, they brought the boots to Israel because they had, they still have to return it there. You can't just, it doesn't just disappear, the obligation. I'm talking about like 50 years later or something. Anyway, yeah, where are those boots now? They're in the museum, in the Israel Museum, Meah Sharim Museum. So Rabba says, it's Rabba and Rabbi Yosef over here. Rabba says he's a Shemer Chinam. My Hana the Kamatile. What benefit does he get from watching it? He's not a paid watchman. All he has is responsibility. There's no payment. Rabbi Yosef says he's like a Shemer Sacher. Why? By he Hana the lay boy lemesfele riftalan yavi kishemer sacher comes up with this like very obscure sort of benefit. Is that since we have a rule that basic mitzvah patim in a mitzvah, if you're involved in one mitzvah, you're exempt from doing another mitzvah. If you're involved in returning this object, you're picking it up, you have to take it here, there, you have to this. And so while you're doing that, someone comes over to you and says, "Can I have $1 for a cup of coffee?" A poor guy, whatever, $4 for Starbucks, $4 for Starbucks. So if someone asks for tzedakah, you can tell him that I'm sorry, I'm in the middle of a mitzvah and I'm busy. He's Isaac b'mitzvah, he's exempt from doing a mitzvah. So he just gained himself a pruta, one coin from giving to tzedakah. He gained the coin because he's doing a mitzvah. So now that's considered a payment for his watching, and he's considered a shemer sacher.
We had this before. I think it was with also with the guy. That if he was a slave for a cat, like he was exempt from doing the mitzvah, so he was getting profit.
I don't remember that by the cat. You think so?
We learned that. I'm not sure
Okay.
if it was by the guy.
Okay. It's in a few places. It's in Sukkah. It's a big deal. Because in Sukkah, they have over there who has to responsible to be in the Sukkah. Someone that was going to see his teacher or something. So that was a mitzvah on the holiday to see the teacher.
Sukkah 25A.
Yitzi says Sukkah 25A.
I think it was because that was when we learned about a lot about the shliach. Another shliach.
Right. Okay. Some that explain it like this. There's others that explain it slightly different. They say that why is a shemer sachar more responsible than a shemer chinam? Because the Torah goes into the psychology of a person and realizes that a person that's being paid is really accepting on himself more responsibility. Well, if that's the case, then when the Torah is obligating a person to do it, really that person is accepting on himself bigger responsibility because he's doing the mitzvah, because the Torah is telling him to do it. So he's accepting that extra responsibility. So Rabbi Yosef is saying that because this is not just the fellow that's asking you to do this. This is you're getting a mitzvah while you're doing it. So you're actually accepting on yourself a deeper level, a higher level of responsibility. And that's why you what level? A shemer sacher level, which means you're going to be obligated if it gets lost or stolen. Simin hechzira liyaylam hashev chia amrit nishbar sacher. This is a mnemonic for all the questions that we're going to ask. It's going to take us on to the next page, a whole daf just dedicated to the questions between Rabba and Rabbi Yosef. What's going to happen is, in order to resolve Rabbi Yosef's opinion, who says that it's a shemer sacher, we're going to have to be creative and come up with other halachas, which we're going to ask questions on those halachas, which means we're really asking questions on Rabbi Yosef's opinion about this. We start off simple. Eisir Rabbi Yosef LaRabba. Rabbi Yosef has a question to Rabba who says that someone that's watching a lost object is a shemer chinam. If someone has a lost object that he's supposed to be returning, and he finds who the owner is, and he gives it back to the person. He gives it back, but not into the person's hands, just a place where the owner will see it in his property. He doesn't have to deal with it anymore. That's considered returned. Put it on his front porch, something like that. It's fine. Let's say it gets lost or stolen. Chayav b'achriyusa, he's going to be responsible. So my nignava after, what do you mean he's responsible? Lav nignava mi beisai v'avta mi beisai. We're going back to originally before he returned it. When he still had it, if it gets lost or stolen, he's going to be obligated. He's going to be responsible for whatever damage. Which type of watchman is responsible for lost or stolen? Is a shomer sachar. Rabbi Yosef is right. It's a question on Rabbah. Gemara says, "Loi." Rabbah answers, "Mimakim shech zero." We're not talking about while he's watching it. We're talking about when he returned it. Talking about when he returned it to that place that the owner can see it, and it gets lost or stolen, he's going to be responsible. It says, but you just told me he's not responsible to deal with it. Now you're telling me he is liable. We're talking about that he returned it in the afternoon. And there's actually two cases here. It has to go like this. And if you put it in a place where the owner will see it, because you put it by his house, and the owner is at home in the morning, he's doing his chitas and Rambam before he goes to work. So it starts work at 12. So then the v'shchiach the aisle v'nafik is common for him to come in and out b'chazilei and see it. So he doesn't have to deal with it because he knows the owner's going to see it. But the guy's at work in the afternoon, in a place in the house where he thinks he's going to see it. He would see it. The only thing is the guy's not home. So then then he's chayav b'achriyusa. So that's the story. That's the case. Okay. Apparently they didn't go to work, and I thought they had their work done by 10 o'clock. Farmers have their work done by.
The way you describe this, it reminded me of like Amazon taking this stuff by your door and take a picture.
Right. Yeah, that's basically it. Now apparently they have this thing where they can jam the Wi-Fi. It's like a Wi-Fi jammer. Did you hear about the thing? So people can come up to your house and take a package, and the Ring camera can't catch it because they jam the some of the You see people today. A lot of people have cameras by the front door, so they see who's there or whatever. But also you can see the packages that are there. But if they jam it, they can't see the person that's taking it. Anyway, the Wi-Fi, so that the Ring camera doesn't work. But if it's wired, I think it still goes. That's why it's better to have a wired.
Why does it matter if it works or not?
Because they can't see who's the person that's taking it if someone wants to steal packages.
Oh.
Anyway, okay.
No, John asked what's steal. I also don't know.
Another question that Rabbi Yosef has on Rabbah. You're obligated to return an object until it goes into his property. What do you mean forever? That means even from his house. Even if it's in his own house, we're talking about. Even if it's in his own, if the shomer, the guy that found the Aveda, it's in his house and something happens to it, then he's going to be chayiv. It says you're always chayiv until you return it. That means that even if you put it in a protected place, you're still going to be chayiv. That must be because of shomer sacher. Shema minach shomer sacher. That means it must be a shomer sacher. Amalei, Rabbi Yosef says, 1 second. Meidina lach bebalei chayim. I agree to you that when it comes to livestock, even the naktilu nigra brisa, since it's already taken steps outside, boina tirusi yaserta, you have to watch it more. This Hillel, you mentioned this before. Once it did it once, it's going to do it again. Okay, so which means that what Rabbi Yosef is saying is that the fact that this animal we're talking about here, an animal, that's what Rabbi Yosef is telling us. The fact that this animal has gone outside once, now it always knows how to escape. So it always knows where to go. It's used to escaping, does this all the time. So then you have to watch it even more. Now, I thought before that if it's in his house, it's going to be protected. That would only be if it wouldn't be an animal, and it would be by a shomer chinam. It's fine. But here, even a shomer chinam is going to be responsible because the way that you have to watch animals, the way a shomer chinam has to watch animals is more than a shomer chinam has to watch just an object that gets put in his house because it could escape, and there's more more precautions they have to take. Esvei Rabba Rabbi Yosef. Okay, now we work backwards. Now Rabba is asking Rabbi Yosef. You say that it's a Shomer Sachar. 1 second. Hashev says that you have to return it properly. That means that I would think that you have to return the lost object to the owner's house. How do I know I can return it to his garden or to his broken down house, his shed or whatever? It says Hashev Teshivim that you return it. But that means Mikal Makim, however you return it is fine. What do you mean you're returning it to the garden or to the broken down house? Are we talking about that there's a fence around the garden, that there's a fence around the broken house, and it's exactly like his house, it's a protected area. So what's the difference? Obviously, we're talking about talking about a house that's a garden that's not guarded. And we're talking about a broken down house that's not protected. It must be that he's considered a Shomer Chinam, and a lesser level of precaution, of watching, is acceptable, because he's a Shomer Chinam. This is Rabba's question to Rabbi Yosef. You say that a Shomer Aveda, someone that's watching lost object, is a Shomer Sachar. I have a proof that he doesn't have to watch it so well. Shomer Chinam. Rabbi Yosef responds, really, we're talking about it's a protected area with the kakash l'chayna besa, and you asked that this is exactly like his house. The chiddush over here is that you don't have to tell the owner that you returned it. You just have to throw it into his property. And if it's protected, that's fine. So everything needs the owner's knowledge. If someone takes something, steals something, or one of the shemrim that are returning something, and then if they return it, they have to tell the owner that they returned it. Except for Shavas Aveda, because the Torah says that it says several times, Hashev Teshivim, that tells you that you're Yaitse, even if you didn't tell the owner, as long as you put it back where it's supposed to be. Okay.
Can a person make can the owner make a kinyan if something goes into his own domain? Is that how it works?
Yeah.
I mean, it was his
that's
object to begin with. If it was someone else's, that might not be the case, no?
Right. But even if it is someone else's, well, not if it's someone else's, if it's something hefker in his domain, he could acquire it if he's standing there for sure. He could say, without lifting it up. But here, he doesn't even know about it. If he doesn't know about it, he doesn't acquire it. Here we're saying this is a chiddush, that it's considered returned, even though the owner doesn't know that it's been returned already. As long as you returned it to a safe place, to a protected place. You put it through the slot in its mailbox. Right. If she was there, but you still have to tell her. By a get, you have to tell her. Amalei Abaya le Rabbi Yosef. Now Abaya is asking Rabbi Yosef a question. He says, "Va'atle tizbra, you don't hold the shemer aveda k'shemer chinam dami, that a watchman of a lost object is considered a shemer chinam, an unpaid watchman, a non-paid watchman." But Rabbi Chia Barabba says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, it was before, actually, about the same time as Rabbi Yosef. No, Rabbi Yochanan is earlier than Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yochanan is in days of Rav and Shmuel. And Rabbi Yosef is like two generations removed from that. It says, but Rabbi Chia Barabba says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that a tayin tainas ganav ba'aveda shalom tashlamei kefil. Okay, now, the way it works is like this. A watchman has different claims. So the guy comes to him and says, give me my item back. So he has different claims. One of them is he says it was stolen. If it turns out that it wasn't stolen, and the guy's an absolute liar, he's just keeping it for himself, and he's saying that it was stolen, so we put on him all the obligations that we put on a thief, and just like a thief pays double, he would have to pay double. Okay, because he exempted himself with a claim that it was stolen, and he actually stole it. Let's say he says that it's stolen, and he's not exempt by it being stolen. He says, okay, but you were responsible for theft as well. You have to pay me. Then he has to pay. So he's never going to end up paying double, because when he claimed that it was stolen, he thought he was like saying, like, I'm innocent, and I don't have to pay. Turns out that, okay, what he actually said was that he has to pay, so he paid. Then we find out that he was the one that stole it, but he doesn't have to pay double because he already paid for the item. That was could be that he was actually wants that item that the guy didn't want to sell him and all, and he ended up getting it like that. So maybe there's other halachas, but he doesn't have to pay double as a regular thief because he actually paid for the item. Yeah. So now we have a statement from Rabbi Yochanan. If someone claims that it got stolen, the lost object got stolen.
But he paid like someone else stole it.
He actually stole it. He was a liar.
Yeah, but that's the problem.
He
Like,
stole
he
it, though,
paid
no?
only once, and he's a thief. He's supposed to pay twice.
No, this is
He's a
an
paid-
actual thief.
He's a paid watchman.
An actual thief is someone that breaks into someone's house and steals. This guy is not an actual thief. Yeah, he's a thief, but he's not the thief that usually pays kefil. He's the guy. He has to swear, right? And he's going to swear falsely. Yeah, he's going to swear falsely. He's claiming it's not in his possession. We find that it really is. That's a good point. Shalom brought up. He has to make that oath that it's not in his possession.
So then he pays once here, and then he'll have the decree.
Probably, but whatever the case is, he doesn't have to pay double because he paid for it. You only have to pay double if you actually steal something. Yeah, the guy had some a baseball card that was expensive that he wanted, and the guy didn't want to sell it to him. Anyway, he was watching it. He says, "Oh, I lost it, but I'll pay you for it." So he ends up with the item. He doesn't have to pay double, but he paid for it. So what happened over here is the guy lost it. This guy finds it. Okay. So when it comes to Rabbi Yochanan says that if someone claims that it got stolen, he has to pay, and we find that he has it, he has to pay double. Now, why would he have to pay double if he already paid for it? It must be that when he claimed that it was stolen, he was exempt from paying. Now, which type of watchman is exempt from paying when it's stolen? A non-paid watchman. So he says like this. Abai asks Rabbi Yosef, do you really think that a shemer aveda is a shemer sacher, not a shemer chinam? But Rabbi Yochanan says, Rabbi Chia Barab, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, he has to pay double. How did he end up paying double? If you'd say that he's a paid watchman, he doesn't have to pay double. He already bought the item. He already paid for the item. Rabbi Yosef responds that he didn't claim that it was stolen. He claimed that an armed robber came in and took it. An armed robber is an einus. That's a different type of stealing. It's not that someone broke through the chimney, and came down and but no one was seeing. He got through. He came through. This guy came in with a gun. That's an armed robbery. That's an einus. And that's why he's exempt, because the shemer sacher is exempt. Baya says, you got out of one problem, but you got yourself into another problem with that answer. So we get why he was exempt. But why does he have to pay double? Amalei listen to Museum Gazlan. A Gazlan, an armed robber, is a robber is different than a thief. A thief has to pay double. A robber is someone that comes over to you while you're holding something and grabs something away. Then 4 or 5 times, right? But a robber is someone that walks over to you while you're holding something and just grabs it out of your hand and runs away. He's not afraid of you. Well, he ran away, but he's not afraid of you knowing that he's a robber. So only someone that's afraid of you knowing that he's a robber, the guy that comes in by night with a mask on, and he sneaks in, he doesn't want anyone to see him, and he takes it. He doesn't see the cameras watching. And he takes it and he makes his way out. He has to pay double. He's not afraid of Hashem. He's only afraid of people. That's the guy that has to pay double. But a guy that's not afraid of Hashem and is not afraid of people either, not afraid of the embarrassment from people, he just goes and grabs something. So he's a Gazlan. He doesn't have to pay double. So the armed robber that comes up to someone with a gun and takes something, he shouldn't have to pay double. So yes, you got to a situation where the person that's watching the object is considered it would be exempt from payment. But when we catch it by him, he shouldn't be considered a ganav. He should be considered the gazlan, because what the rule is, whatever claim he makes on it is the law that we apply to him. So he becomes like a gazlan, and a gazlan doesn't have to pay double. But how did Rabbi Yechon say he paid double? He says, I hold that an armed robber is more similar to a thief than to a robber.
Whoa.
Why? The fact that he came with a gun means that he's actually afraid of people. He's not afraid of Hashem, he's only afraid of people. Just like a regular thief is not afraid of Hashem, he's only afraid of people. Not like a robber that just comes, is not afraid of Hashem or people, he just grabs it out and runs away. So what are you going to do to me? Like those bullies, what are you going to do? That's someone that doesn't have to pay double. But this guy is afraid of everyone. So not afraid of Hashem, but he's afraid of people, so he has to pay double. Okay. So what Rabbi Yosef came up with now is that a listim mezuyin, an armed robber, it's considered a ninus, which would exempt a shomer sachar, a paid watchman, but nevertheless, he's still considered a ganav when it comes to paying double. Considered unpreventable circumstances when it comes to a shomer sachar, but when it comes to paying double, he's considered a ganav. Okay, that's how he resolved this issue with Rabbi Yechanan's statement.
What actually goes on?
Which is?
Usually, when the guy comes with a mask, he doesn't harm the people because they can't see him, so they can't testify how he looks like. But when they don't come with a mask, they do harm the people because they don't want them to testify.
Uh-huh.
It's the complete opposite.
Uh-huh. This is a guy who lives in the woods. He comes with a gun and then he runs out to the woods. The police can never find him. It's like one of these. Okay. Aisvei, you have a question?
Ranger was always confusing. He was a good guy, but he was bad.
Is that the guy with the silver bullets? Okay. I just remember like an arrow on this door or something. Right? There was something there. Okay, now we have another question. This is going to be a question on Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef just came up, in order to get out of an issue, it came up that a listim mezuyim is considered a ganav. We're going to pursue this a little bit as well. You think he's a ganav, a listim mezuyim, an armed robber is considered a ganav? 1 second. It's talking about a comparison that we have between a shemer chinam and a shemer sachar. So we say that a shemer chinam, if we find that a shemer chinam was a liar, if we find that a shemer chinam is a liar, since whatever he claimed would have exempted him, whatever he claimed, it got lost, it got stolen, whatever he claims, he's exempt. So when we find out that he's a liar and he actually had it in his possession, he has to pay double. So, but by a shemer sachar, that a shemer sachar doesn't have to pay doubles. This is a statement that the Mishnah is bringing in, doing this contrast, comparing and contrasting. A shemer chinam has a strictness over a shemer sachar. Shemer sachar never pays kefil. He never pays double. According to Rabbi Yosef, if according to you, Rabbi Yosef, a listim mezuyim, an armed robber, is considered a thief, turns out that a shemer sachar is exempt, and he's really going to have to pay double. That whole brisa doesn't fit, because it's possible that he's going to end up paying double a shemer sachar when he claims that it was an armed robber, and really he had kept it for himself. Amalei Rabbi Yosef responds, Hachi Kamar. You have to adjust it, modify it just a little bit, and then you'll see it's going to fit. Whatever the shemer chinam says, he's always going to end up paying kefil when it turns out that he's a liar. because he's always considered stealing it. But by a Shemer Sacher, he only has one example where he's going to have to pay kefil. So in other words, it wasn't that a Shemer Sacher never pays kefil, it's that a Shemer Sacher really pays kefil, and a Shemer Chinim always pays kefil when he turns out that he's a liar. Esvei. Another question on Rabbi Yosef. It says, Vinish Bari Mes. This is talking about a borrower. A borrower has to pay, even if unpreventable circumstances ruin the object, the item that he borrowed. Ainli Ela Shvura Mesa. I would only know if it got broken or it died. Vinish Bari Mes means it broke or it died. Geneva Vaveda Minayin. How do I know that the borrower has to pay for the item if it got stolen or lost? Amrit Kalvachaimer. We said we have a Kalvachaimer. It's a for shiori, for sure. Ma Shemer Sacher Shapata Beshvura Mesa. When it comes to a Shemer Sacher, a paid watchman, he is obligated to pay for it. I mean, see, he's exempt to pay for it if it got broken or died, right? We say that's unpreventable circumstance. If it got broken or if the animal broke a leg or it died, that's unpreventable. It doesn't. What are you supposed to do? The animal broke its leg. It's unpreventable. But so Shemer Sacher is exempt. But nevertheless, he's chayiv b'gnei v'aveda, but he's obligated to pay if it got stolen or lost. Shoyel, a borrower, shechayiv b'shvura mesa, that he's obligated if it's broken or he has to pay for that. It says in the pasuk he has to pay if it got broken or died. Ein adin shechayiv b'gnei v'aveda. So if a Shemer Sacher is chayiv, for sure the shoyel is chayiv. Says 1 second. Oh, 1 second. This is a type of Kal V'Chaimer that has no response. It's such a good Kal V'Chaimer that there's no questions that anyone can ask on this. The Gemara says 1 second. If you say that an armed robber is considered a thief, what do you mean that there's no questions on this? You can ask. No, we have a stringency by the Shemer Sacher. Shemer Sacher sometimes pays double, which a borrower never pays double. Even if he steals the item, even if the borrower steals the item, he doesn't return it, and he claims that if this accident happened, he still has to pay for it. So he never pays double. But a Shemer Sacher sometimes does pay double. So we were saying that a shayel is much stricter than a Shemer Sacher, and therefore, if a Shemer Sacher is chayav, for sure the borrower is chayav. Right? If the paid watchman is chayav, for sure the borrower is chayav. Turns out it's not necessarily so, because a paid watchman has a strictness over a borrower that sometimes he pays double. Amarle. So Rabbi Yosef responds to this. Kasavar hai Tana. This Tana holds karna b'lei shvua adifim mikvela b'shvua, that to pay up front every single time without any exemption is stricter than once in a while having to pay double. So the borrower that always has to pay up front never gets any time off. That's much stricter than every once in a while. That's much stricter than the Shemer Sacher that gets off whenever there's an accident. But sometimes if he gets caught, he has to pay double. So we are considering the shayel much stricter, and that's how we hold. Leim Messiah, I'll prove it to you. We're still caught in this list of mezuyim being a ganav, right?
Why are we talking about it?
That's right. I think also.
Because Rabbi Yosef had to come up with this in order to resolve an issue that he had by saying that a shemer aveda is considered a shemer sacher. So he introduced this concept that a list of mezuyim is considered a ganav.
But 3 dafim on it.
So the Gemara works. I hear you. Lema Messiah, I'll prove it to you. I hear. Someone rents a cow. He's a renter. Rents a cow from his friend and it got stolen. Amar Hala, and the fellow says, I want to pay. I don't want to swear. I'm telling you it got stolen, but I don't want to swear to that. So he's saying, I'm a good guy and it got stolen. I don't want to swear. I'm going to pay even though I don't have to. I could have sworn and I would be exempt. But then they find the ganav. The double payment that the Ganav has to pay, instead of going to the original owner, goes to the watchman because he has already purchased the item from the owner, and so he gets it. Yeah, we'll learn in Amafkid, we'll learn exactly that. It's not that he purchased it now, he purchased it. It's as if he purchased it before when he first took it. And so therefore the stealing of it, the payments of it will end up going to this watchman, to this renter. Savrua, the Gemara thinks, Rabbi Yehuda, it's probably following Rabbi Yehuda, that a renter is considered a paid watchman. So how would he have gone free? The fact that he said that I want to pay, I don't want to swear, means that if he would have sworn, he would have been exempt. He just doesn't want to do that. But how would a paid watchman be exempt? Obviously, because he would have claimed that it was an armed robbery. And that's why he would have been exempt. But then we also say that he has to pay double. How does an armed robber pay double? It must be that an armed robber is considered a ganav, exactly like Rabbi Yosef. Okay. We said that we think that we have a proof for Rabbi Yosef. It's a nice proof. The Gemara says Amri. The Gemara says no, it's not a good proof. Maybe the seicher, the renter, is considered a non-paid watchman. We had a machlekes, we had this before. Is a renter considered a paid watchman or a non-paid watchman? So Rabbi Yehuda holds that he's considered a paid watchman, and Reb Meir holds he's considered a non-paid watchman. Now, if he's a non-paid watchman, then any sort of thief would have been exempt, and any sort of thief would have had to pay double. So you don't have to come onto that whole story with that it's an armed robber. If you want, we could even say, Rabbi Baravua said that instead of saying that what Reb Meir holds and what Rabbi Yehuda holds, he switches the names. He says, how does a renter pay? Reb Meir, he pays like a shemer sacher, like a paid watchman, exactly the opposite. Rabbi Yehuda says he pays like a non-paid watchman. Okay, if you want to say it's Rabbi Yehuda, you can still say it's Rabbi Yehuda and still say the same thing, that he's considered a non-paid watchman. You can have the cake and eat it too. Reb Zera Amar, Reb Zera says, Zera comes up with an interesting case. Says he exempted himself by claiming that it was an unpreventable circumstance. It was a case of an armed robbery, and he's a seicher, which means he's a shemer sacher. So he's exempt from unpreventable circumstance. So now he says, I don't want to swear to it. I'd rather pay. He could have sworn and lied, but he'd rather pay. So he pays. Could have been exempt. Now it's considered like he purchased the item. Now we find the robber. Turns out it was not an armed robber. It was a regular thief. But he's already purchased the item. Now a regular thief, that's not an armed robber, pays double. So that's how he's getting the double. If it would have been an armed robber, not necessarily would he have gotten paid double. An actual armed robber, when we find him, maybe doesn't pay double. But here, he claimed that it was an armed robber to exempt him. It doesn't mean that he actually was. Okay. The next Gemara, that's the end of the Shemer Aveda Sugya. And big Sugya, because it has to do with Isik b'mitzvah, Patim in a mitzvah.
He claimed he was an armed robber to get out of payment.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then he's still paid.
But he said, I don't want to take the oath. I'd rather pay. Why did he have to claim that? What happens is when he has a claim that he could get out of it, but he nevertheless pays for it. So then the original owner is so grateful to him that he allows him to take the kefil. He doesn't automatically get the kefil, the double payment. It's because of the owner so grateful to him that even though he didn't, that's what we're going to learn in Bava Metzia, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. If it falls into a garden and it has benefit. Now, we made a contrast in the Mishnah. We said that if it enters the garden naturally, normally, then we say that he has to pay for all the damages. But if it fell into the garden by accident, the animal fell in, then he only has to pay for the benefit that he gets, which was different than the actual damages. We explained that the difference between the benefit and damages is damages you have to pay for the price of what got damaged. And the benefit is you have to pay for the price of what you would have fed the animal if you would have had to serve it lunch. But today you didn't have to serve it lunch. So normally lunch for the animal is $1. Now it ate $20 worth of tomatoes, but you only have to pay for your benefit. I only benefited $1. It saved me from the straw that I usually give it. Okay, now when it says that he has to pay for the benefit, so Amar Rav says benechbeta. We're talking about that it fell in. There's two types of damages, or two types of benefit that it got. One is that it got cushioned by the fall. Other one that it ate. Got cushioned by the fall means it saved it from dying. So benefit to that. And the other benefit would be that it ate. Rav says we're talking about that it got cushioned by the fall. Avalachla sounds like it, but if it ate, it probably doesn't have to pay anything. Why did Rav say that he only has to pay for the cushion, for the cushioning of the fall? But and what about eating? Probably doesn't have to pay. Maybe this fits what Rav said before. Was an example, was an excuse that was given. If someone's ox goes into someone else's property and eats over there, and so of course it has to pay for the food that it ate. But here what happened is that it ate so much that it got damaged by what it ate. And now the ox is damaged. So the guy wants to charge the owner of the field for the ox. So the owner of the field says, who asked it to eat? Okay, so an excuse to get out of payment is who told the animal to eat? It's not my fault. It shouldn't have eaten. Okay, now we're using this excuse exactly the opposite in a very strange way. We're saying that this animal it fell into someone else's property and it ate over there. And Rob says that if it ate, it doesn't have to pay. And the reason is, who told the animal to eat? Now the problem is that it's his animal. That's what you told the other guy when it ate. Now this is the owner of the animal telling the owner of the field that who told the animal to eat? I wasn't there. Who told it to eat? I didn't tell it to eat. I'm not responsible.
But he still benefited because he didn't have to feed.
Oh, so the benefit, yeah. So, but for some reason, he doesn't have to even pay for the benefit right now. The Gemara is going to adjust this. It says Amri. The Gemara says Hachiyash to hold it. When did Rav say that who told the animal to eat? That's when the animal got damaged. The Mari the pay because the owner of the fruit says, I'm not going to pay you. It shouldn't have eaten. But but when the animal is damaging someone else, the petir l'shlume miyamar, that to exempt him, we're going to say the owner of the animal is going to say that my animal shouldn't have eaten. That doesn't make sense. Ella, rather, Leimi by Kamar. We're going to have to adjust the statement of Rav. We thought that what Rav said was that if it gets cushioned by the fall, that's when you have to pay for the benefit. But you don't have to pay for when it ate. It's actually the opposite. It's actually not only do you have to pay for what it ate for the benefit, but you even have to pay for the cushioning of the fall. That's what Rav meant. Not that you're exempt, but you have to also pay. Not only if it ate, do you have to pay the benefit, which means you say it got saved from the meal. Even though there was no negligence, but you still benefited. But if it got cushioned by the fall, I could have thought like this, that there are some good Samaritan laws that you try to do everything you can to protect someone else from having a loss. So I saw the animal falling. So I didn't want it to die. I pushed the tomatoes under it so it should get cushioned. Now, you didn't actually do that. It actually fell directly on the tomatoes. But we would say that, look, that's something that you should have done anyway. You should have made sure that your friend doesn't have a loss. So I could have thought that maybe because that was something, a mitzvah that you had to do to make sure that your friend doesn't have a loss. So then maybe the friend doesn't have to pay. That was something that you should be obligated to do, to always make sure that no one has a loss. You shouldn't have to pay even for that. Kamash Malan, that he has to pay. Okay. Maybe he really doesn't have to pay. Umar says, no. 1 second. When you chase a lion, the expression was you're chasing a lion out of your friend's field. You're supposed to protect your friend's property if you see something happen. You see the water on in your friend's thing and he doesn't know about it. You go and you turn it off so he doesn't have to pay that big bill, right? Try to protect him from maybe it's going to flood the thing and house and it's going to ruin his thing. You always try to protect your friend's field, even though you're not responsible, but that's what you're supposed to do. So, but that's only when you do it knowingly. Hi, love me daite. This he didn't do it knowingly. No one asked him if he wants to protect his friend's animal from falling into his field. The friend's animal fell right on the tomatoes. If he would have done it knowingly, that would have been a different story. But he didn't do it knowingly; it just fell. When you protect your friend's field from the lion, you don't have a loss. But yes, that's like the main difference. Over here, you have a loss. You're incurring a loss. Then that's a different story. Then you can get payment for whatever loss you have.
It was the same way with
The wine.
the
And the
guy
honey.
threw out the wine to save
Yeah.
the honey.
The guy throws out the wine to save the honey. He doesn't get paid for the wine actually over there. He only gets paid as a worker because he could have made up with him that will you pay me for my wine? And he didn't do that. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I'd have to go through this. Let's see if
I remember that he was claiming the wine, but I thought
I don't think he gets paid for the wine over there. I think Tesis goes through this. Okay. Now the Gemara says, Hechi nafal. We said that the animal fell into the friend's field. How did it fall in? Rav Kana says that it slipped in its own urine. That's not so common. And that's something that you couldn't have been aware that was going to happen. So the animal was walking regularly, everything's fine. It slipped in its own urine and it fell into the garden.
That'd be the same case if you were watching like an animal expose up all of your kitchen slips.
Yeah, exactly. That's coming up. You're going to see soon. Rabbi Yirmiyah is going to ask a question like that. There's another opinion, that was Rav Kana. Rav says, that its friend pushed it. The one that says that its friend pushed it, so that's already has a slight negligence. There should be more chayav. But if it fell in its urine, that's a bit much less negligence. So then that you're going to be exempt from the payment and you're only going to need to do mashanenes. However, according to Rav Kana, that says that the way it fell in was such an accident that it fell in, it slipped in its own urine. But if its friend pushed it, then Rav Kana would probably say that you actually have to pay for the damages. Why? He should have made it go one at a time. Why did he let it go in a crowded two at a time? It caused it to fall in. Rav Kana says, you're only exempt from paying for the damages when it goes, not for the exempt from the damages when you're responsible for paying for what it benefited. You're only exempt from the damages on the first row that it fell in right over there. But then afterwards it gets up and starts to go from row to row and it eats from every row. That's already Mishlemis Mashizika. That's already, the accident is already past. Now it's already walking naturally. That you should have to pay. Rabbi Yochanan says no. Even if it goes from row to row in the field, the fact that it entered in a way of an accident, so then it's already that exemption continues all the way through until it goes back to the owner's house, and then it leaves again, and then you have to pay mashizika. When it leaves again, then that's going to be in a negligent way. But now the way that it fell in was not negligent, so that's all an accident. It doesn't have to leave the field that it entered and then come back with it with knowledge of the owner. Once it leaves it, even though it came back without intention of the owner, it's still going to be chayav. My timer, he tells the owner of the field, tells to the owner of the animal, even the alpha you should know that since it had such a good meal last time, anytime it leaves your house, you know where it's going. It's going to that candy city that where last time it ate all the tomatoes and everything. So that's considered already ladas. It's considered like it's already considered that that's where it knows where to go. You mentioned this before.
In the case that the animal fell and was there like for a long time, the owner of the animal has to pay back for each meal that the animal had there.
Yeah, that's for sure. But Rav Kana says not only does he have to pay for each meal that the animal had there, it even has to pay. It only has it even has to pay for the damages. Now, not just the meal which cost $1, has to pay for only the first row that it ate. Does it have to pay the $1 for the lunch meal? But when it hung around over there and ate dinner as well, over there you already have to pay for the damage. That's Rav Kana's view. Rabbi Yochanan says no. The whole time it was there, you only have to pay for the breakfast, lunch, and dinner, which is $3. Let's say it went down naturally and it caused damage, you have to pay for the damages. Rabbi Yirmiyah says, let's say it went down naturally, this is your story, and it gave birth right over there, all over the tomatoes. And so there's all the water. I don't know exactly how the animals give birth, but I assume there's water and placenta and all the good stuff. So now it's all over the vegetables. It's a mess. So do you have to pay for that? This is like chilase b'pshia v'seifer b'ainis. It says it started with negligence and it ended with an accident. Chayav leiti bailach. Then of course you have to pay. Titi bailach. What's our question? According to the opinion that says that anything that starts with negligence but ends in an accident is exempt. What's going to be the din? Given the potter, since it was started with negligence but in the end was an accident, he's exempt. Dilmar, maybe we should say that this is entirely negligence. Given the chazi, the kriva leila melad, you saw was in the 9th month. Actually, animals, I think, is like less 5 months or 7 months, whatever it is. You should have guarded it better that this shouldn't happen. And protected it, like guarded it, that it shouldn't go into anyone's field and cause a mess over there. Let's do it. Teensy drop more. Teku. So I don't have an answer to Rabbi question. How does he pay what it caused damage? So it says you don't pay for the actual fruits that they would cost in the store. You pay for what the field is worth with the fruits and what the field is worth without the fruits. Amar Kaminani Mili, but how do you know this? Amar Rav Masna. Rav Masna says, or maybe it's Rav Matana in your Gemara. The Amar Kra, the pasuk says that it consumes in another field. This teaches us that you have to evaluate the loss based on its worth in another field, not the actual fruits. The Gemara says, that you can't learn from that pasuk how to assess the payment. That pasuk of Bir B'Steyacher is coming to tell me a very important halacha. It's coming to teach me that if it eats in a public area, you're exempt from paying. The Gemara says, then let it say that it ate in the friend field. Inami Sideyacher. My Bisteyacher. What does it mean in another field? It's coming to tell me that extra base that you have to evaluate it in another field. That when it comes to the payment, you have to evaluate how it would be in a field and without it in a field. Maybe if that's the case, then all it's telling me is coming to tell me about how you assess the loss. Maybe it's not coming to teach me at all what happens in a public property. If it's only telling me about the payment, then it should have said the best of his field, the best of his vineyard, he should pay in another field. Why does it tell it to me about the damages? Ubir means in a consumed. It tells me the law of assessing by this place in the pasuk that's talking about the damaging, not by the payment. Shmami natarti. It's coming to teach me two things. It's coming to teach me both that it's only if it damaged in a public area, only if it damaged in a private area, will you have to pay for those food, and also it's coming to tell me how we evaluate the damage. Let's leave it over here.
What? That's it?